Tonight, governing NPP tears into special prosecutor's report on Airbus Scandal that exonerated former President John Mahama and NDC flagbearer, describing it as shoddy.
He should have recused himself for the sake of conflict of interest. He did not do so. What is the state of conflict of interest on the laws of Ghana? On the laws of Ghana, on conflict of interest, you have to be investigated. OSP has done a lazy job saying he did a shoddy work.
We have details from that report, including what transpired when the special prosecutor interviewed John Mahama on the allegations.
The individual described as government official 1 by the UK court and individual 1 by the US court is John Dramani Mahama.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Telecel, connecting energies, holy insecticide spray and coil. Enjoy a holy sleep. Now, the governing New Patriotic Party is tonight tearing into the special prosecutor's report on the Airbus scandal that exonerated former President John Dramani Mahama. Investigators in the UK, US, and France had established that Airbus failed to stop its agents from bribing Ghanaian officials. One of the central figures accused of allegedly facilitating the bribe, estimated at more than 3 million euros, is a brother of John Dramani Mahama himself. After 4 years of investigating the matter, the special prosecutor found no evidence that John Mahama was ever bribed. Listen to Kise Jabing addressing a news conference today.
The processes leading to the purchase by the government of Ghana of 3 C-295 twin turboprop military transport aircraft from Airbus followed substantially the same pattern. Parliament approved the proposed transactions in 2011. In accordance with the laws of Ghana, in the estimation of the OSP, there was nothing remarkable about the deal, and it certainly would not have found its way in the UK and US deferred prosecution agreements and made headlines around the world, but for the involvement of former President John Dramani Mahama and his younger brother of the full blood, Samuel Adam Foster, also known as Samuel Adam Mahama, and his associates, as recounted in the UK and US deferred prosecution agreements. The OSP investigation found no evidence that former President Mahama was involved or played any role in the procurement and maintenance of the agency relationship between Airbus and Foster and his associates in respect of the purchase by the government of Ghana of military transport aircraft from Airbus. And it appears to the OSP that the direct communications and meetings between former President Mahama and officials of Airbus to close the deal were actuated by good intentions on the part of the former president. It also appears that Foster and his associates became involved as intermediaries in the Airbus Ghana deal after the decision by the government of Ghana in preference of the C-295 aircraft. Therefore, it seems that Foster's Airbus intermediary role at the time his brother served as the vice president of Ghana was a case of luckless coincidence that attracted the disapproval of the UK and US authorities. The OSP found no evidence that suggests that the involvement of Foster as an intermediary of Airbus and the direct communications and meetings between former President Mahama and officials of Airbus to close the deal between Airbus and the government of Ghana amounted to any corruption and corruption-related offense in respect of which the OSP has a mandate. However, it ought reasonably to have occurred to former President Mahama and the government of Ghana that the familiar relationship between former President Mahama and Foster and the direct participation by former President Mahama in the communications and meetings with Airbus officials were bound to raise reasonable suspicions of improper conduct and dealings, notwithstanding any claims to good faith conduct and above-board dealings, especially in light of the fact that during the first Airbus campaign, former President Mahama was a chairman of the Armed Forces Council by reason of his position as a vice president, and therefore a very key decision maker. Such close proximity dealings by such elected high officials of the Republic and their kin and close associates on behalf of the Republic should neither be viewed favorably nor encouraged, as they give rise to reasonable suspicion of influence peddling and conflict of interest, never mind any intended good faith on the part of the vice president or the president.
Well, in the heat of this controversy surrounding this Airbus purchase, one phrase became the central point around which the controversy revolved. It was the identity of government official one. Today, the special prosecutor formally disclosed what he found when he pursued that line with the UK-US officials securing the documentation around the identity of government official one. He says is John Dramani Mahama.
And also, in light of the occurrences in the context of the investigative and prosecutorial actions of the Ghanaian and UK authorities in the past 4.5 years. So, the OSP confirms the identity of the following individuals. Government Official 1, Individual 1. The individual described as Government Official 1 by the UK court and Individual 1 by the US court is John Dramani Mahama. He is a citizen of Ghana. He was the Vice President of Ghana from 7 January 2009 to 24 July 2012. He was the President of Ghana from 24 July 2012 to 7 January 2017. His tenure of office as the Vice President of Ghana coincided with the time frame of the UK and US investigation of the first Airbus campaign for the sale of 2 C-295 aircraft to Ghana. His term of office as the President of Ghana occurred during the UK and US investigation time frame of the second Airbus campaign for the sale of 1 C-29 aircraft to Ghana. Intermediary 5, Consultant 4. The individual described as Intermediary 5 by the UK court and Consultant 4 by the US court is known both as Samuel Adam Mahama and Samuel Adam Foster. He is a UK citizen and also a citizen of Ghana. He is a younger brother of the full blood of John Dramani Mahama, former president of Ghana, referred to above. His birth name is actually Samuel Adam Mahama, but he was adopted from Ghana and taken to the UK in 1972 by a British missionary couple. He assumed the last name of his adopted parents, Foster, at age 9. He lost touch with his Ghanaian family until 1997. Intermediary 6, Consultant 5. The individual described as Intermediary 6 by the UK court and Consultant 5 by the US court is Philip Sean Middlemas. He is a UK citizen. He is an English television and radio actor and businessman. He is a close friend of Samuel Adam Foster.
And that is the OSP today addressing a news conference, and we're learning a bit more. He has been investigating this for 4 years plus, and he only got an opportunity to interview John Dramani Mahama this year, and we're learning a bit more about what John Mahama told him when he sat down for that particular interview as part of the investigations. And my colleague Samuel Mbura is with me in the studio with this. We have a copy now of that full report that the OSP has put out, and the OSP sat down with John Dramani Mahama this year for an interview, and this is part of the investigations indeed. And this happened on 5th January 2024.
Exactly.
And on its own, the OSP located and also interviewed Samuel Adam Foster, Philip Middlemas, Lynn Davis and Sarah Ferno, the individuals whose identity he disclosed today for the very first time because they've been described variously using other pseudonyms. Yeah. He goes through that and tells us the identity. But we are interested a bit more in what happened in that interview with John Mahama. What did the OSP learn?
Evans, so former president, according to the OSP, Mahama intimated that he had had the opportunity to publicly respond to the allegations against him of bribery by Airbus through intermediaries in respect of the purchase by Ghana of the C-295 aircraft from Airbus. However, he welcomed the OSP's interview.
And he fully cooperated, and very extensively too. I mean, the OSP details this, and he goes ahead to talk about how this purchase was a very legitimate one, starting under former President John Ajay Kufuor and his government. At the time, it was the late former President Mills supervised the entire process. It actually went to Parliament, was approved by Parliament, and as far as he's concerned, this was taken through due process, considered by the Ghana Armed Forces, and he had no role in particularly the decision to give the contract to one agent or the other. Airbus had their own agents in this particular matter. And he responds specifically to the allegations that he may have been bribed or was in a position to influence the outcome of the sale of the aircraft.
Well, in the testimony of President John Mahama, the decision to acquire the C-295S was taken professionally by the Ghana Air Force and the military command in general, in the best interest of Ghana and in broad consultation with relevant state institutions, including the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Defense, and ultimately parliamentary approval. Therefore, any suggestion that he had corruptly or improperly influenced in any way the process of acquisition is simply fanciful and untrue. The former president goes further to say that he opined that he believed the allegations of corruption leveled against him stemmed from the fact that Samuel Adam Foster, his brother, was involved in Airbus activities in Ghana and elsewhere in Africa at the time, and suspicion was always that because of that familiar relationship, Foster might have been a corrupting source for influencing government's decision to award the supply contract to Airbus. Former President Mahama stated that he had no hand whatsoever in the establishment of any relationship, formal or otherwise, which Foster had with Airbus.
And what about what the OSP says? He also made some admissions that the OSP had already recounted in the court documents he has procured from both UK and the US.
Well, he has admitted that during his term as Vice President of the Republic, he met with officials of Airbus sometime in February or March 2011 on an official trip to London, where the Airbus team made a representation to government on their products, including helicopters. He stated that it was a formal meeting attended also by the Minister of Finance, representatives of the Ministry of Defense, and Commander of the Ghana Air Force. He goes further to say that they subsequently met one or other Airbus officials in his office in his office a couple of times in connections with the sale of the aircraft. He described the meetings as being invariably official engagements with one or other responsible state official present, the purpose of which was to discuss the progress of the proposed sale of the aircraft. He goes further to say that he never received any bribe or inducement or gained any personal benefit or advantage from the procurement of the aircraft for Ghana, and that Airbus did not make any such allegations against him.
And indeed, if you look at the court documents that the OSP itself recounts in this report, the investigations done by both the US, the UK, and even the France authorities didn't establish anywhere that government official one we now know as JM indeed was a subject of investigation. Indeed, allegations made that he received bribes. And you see the OSP concluding and agreeing with the former president, and indeed, there's no evidence to suggest that he was bribed or facilitated the process for the award of this particular contract because his brother was involved. And I want to bring in right now Sammy Jemfi, who is the National Communications Officer of the NDC, joins me in the studio. And we've also been hearing today from the NPP, by the way. Listen to the Deputy General Secretary, who is tonight tearing into the OSP report, accusing the OSP of doing a shoddy job.
What necessitated the government official one? It was a court ruling. A court ruling in the UK established a position called government official one, and then established an individual who is said to be his brother, who is being named as, number 5? Yes, that is his brother. It's established. What was the court ruling? The court ruling said that government official one was an influential government officer who was under the contract, trying to make sure that that particular Airbus scandal works through. And what did the OSP say? The OSP came and confirmed the ruling of a competent court of jurisdiction. Let's distinct this, my brother. You should get this understanding. A ruling of a court and an investigation of a government body does not nullify the decision of the court. The decision of the court has not been appealed. It has not been reviewed. So government official one in this case referred to a corrupt individual, which is being confirmed as John Mahama. The second thing that we have to note is that the OSP did not leave it back. He said that he should have recused himself for the sake of conflict of interest. He did not do so. What is the state of conflict of interest on the laws of Ghana? On the laws of Ghana, on conflict of interest, you have to be investigated. And that is where it has to go to Shoddy. It has been investigated on conflict of interest on the Amajaro issue.
The pronouncement by the court was in the UK, US, and France.
No, but we have common laws.
Oh, but like the OSP states that
So
then someone
if an individual commits a crime outside and you are gathering evidence, what stops you from taking the evidence from there? Is there any law in Ghana that says that you can pick a judgment of a competent court of jurisdiction in another jurisdiction to establish your case and prosecute your case in your country? There is no such law. And that is why I say that the OSP has done a lazy job. Because the OSP did a lazy job because you can't conclude by saying that because you don't have the facts at hand, you don't have all the facts at hand, hence you cannot prosecute that case. Did he go to ask for the judgment? What was the material used in the judgment in the UK?
And he says he did.
So he could have done that. He could have done that and get the document. Has he been denied the judgment? In using the law, there are always opinions in the use of the law. There could be a different special prosecutor who may rely on another provision of the law to prosecute his case. So we are not faulting him for his work, for his opinion, but we are saying he did a shoddy work.
Sammy Jemfrey is with me in the studio. Sammy, you feel vindicated?
Not just me as an individual, but all lovers of truth. All lovers of fairness and justice have been vindicated in this matter because the truth has been upheld. What we've always known, what we've always maintained right from the outset, that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama is incorruptible, his integrity is unblemished and unassailable. He served this nation dutifully. His legacy is there for everybody to see, and he has not at any time misappropriated public funds or abused his office for private gain or engaged in the collection of any bribe, has today been confirmed by the Office of Special Prosecutor. This whole Airbus saga, which the NPP went to town with in a smear campaign to demonize President Mahama, to bastardize him, and create an impression that he's corrupt, today has fallen flat. Because the Office of Special Prosecutor, after conducting thorough investigations into the matter, has established that, number one, the procurement of the 3 aircrafts from Airbus, 2 in 2011, 1 in 2014, all conformed to due process. They all received the necessary approvals. They all followed the normal process that Air Force uses to procure such aircrafts. Number 2, the Special Prosecutor has found that government of Ghana decided to buy the aircrafts from Airbus even before John Mahama's brother was introduced into the deal as an intermediary of Airbus. That is also clear. So if by the time Foster was introduced as an intermediary, government of Ghana had already taken the decision after negotiations that it was buying these aircrafts from Airbus. Number 3, the Special Prosecutor has found, without any equivocation, that John Mahama had no hand in the engagement of his brother as an intermediary, or if you like, an agent for Airbus. The Special Prosecutor, more importantly, has found that there is no corruption in the deal, no bribes were paid to John Mahama or his brother, and that all those claims concocted by the New Patriotic Party, which chorus President Akufo-Addo himself championed, okay, together with that entire establishment, was just an evil smear campaign which was bound to be exposed in the fullness of time.
However,
and this is something to celebrate. It is something to shout about, that God has vindicated John Dramani
However,
Mahama.
Sammy, from the evidence in this report, John Mahama was definitely in a conflict of interest situation, was he not?
Not at all. There is nothing to that effect. All the special prosecutor said at paragraph, I believe 6.5, 6.8, is that
the point
is
about,
that
quote, however, it ought reasonably to have occurred to former President Mahama and the government of Ghana that the familiar relationship between former President Mahama and Foster, his brother, and the direct participation of the former President Mahama in communications and meetings with Airbus officials were bound to raise reasonable suspicions of improper conduct and dealings notwithstanding.
The word is suspicions. So that NPP communications director you spoke to is clearly ignorant, clearly bankrupt in understanding as far as this matter is concerned, because no finding of conflict of interest was made against John Mahama, either by the UK SFO or by the OSP. The OSP only proffered an advice that John Mahama should have known that people could legitimately have suspicions that there could be conflict of interest. He didn't say that there was conflict of interest, because on conflict of interest, he was emphatic that John Mahama was not involved in the engagement of his brother as an intermediary of Airbus, and therefore there could not have been any conflict of interest. He was not involved. His brother was even engaged as an intermediary of Airbus after the deal had already been negotiated and Ghana had agreed to procure the aircrafts from Airbus. So the issue of conflict of interest does not arise at all. And it's important to make the point.
He concludes that it gives rise to reasonable suspicion of influence peddling
could give
and
rise.
conflict of interest.
Could give rise.
Yeah.
So he's just proffering an advice. You understand? That it should have occurred to President Mahama that people could legitimately, okay, be suspicious that there could be some conflict of interest. He is not saying that there was conflict of interest. That is not the case. No, but more importantly, just hold on. Just a second.
I'll come to you.
No, a second.
No, I'll come to you. Don't worry. We have time.
Okay.
The mere fact that this deal, when he became aware of the process, and indeed the OSP details how this went through due process, even received parliamentary approval. But when he got to know that his brother was involved, he admits he in fact was in a meeting in London with Airbus officials in which his brother also participated. You know what you must do to purge yourself of the conflict. There's no record that he did that.
Masa, you cannot reopen a dead matter. The special prosecutor is categorical that the deal was concluded. And maybe I should read that relevant portion of his speech to you. The deal was concluded even before John Mahama's brother was engaged. And John Mahama's brother's engagement as an intermediary of Airbus was not just for this transaction. It was for other business interests of Airbus in Africa. And it is all in the report. This is what the special prosecutor said. It also appears, I'm quoting the special prosecutor, it also appears that Foster and his associates became involved as intermediaries in the Airbus Ghana deal after the decision by the government of Ghana in preference of the C295 aircrafts. Therefore, it would seem that Foster's Airbus intermediary role at the time his brother was a vice president of Ghana was a case of luckless coincidence.
The decision to buy the aircraft was taken before
before John Mahama's brother was engaged as an intermediary. So that's a decision where is the conflict of interest?
But his brother then became the intermediary for the supply of the aircraft.
No, because Airbus
subsequent to the decision.
No, because Airbus still had business interest in Ghana and other countries. And so the Office of Special Prosecutor, read the report, explains that it is normal practice for Airbus to engage such intermediaries to look for business for them in Africa.
It's standard practice.
So Samuel Mahama's engagement had nothing to do with the negotiation of this particular deal, the procurement of the three aircrafts. So therefore, the issue about conflict of interest is totally moot.
No, but the question being asked is, at some point before the aircrafts were delivered and payments made, John Mahama knew his brother was involved.
brother involved in what?
Was
In a
involved
deal.
in the
His
transaction
brother was
as
involved.
intermediary.
No, his brother was involved in a deal that had already been concluded. A deal that predated the engagement of his brother. And bear in mind.
The deal was, in essence, the deal to buy what the decision that has been taken before he got involved.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I'm saying that after her brother got involved, and John Mahama, obviously because of his position then, also became very central to the whole process. He knew his brother was involved. Shouldn't he have purged himself of that potential conflict?
Because the matter was a fait accompli. The matter had already been done. The deal had been sealed. The negotiation. If, for example, his brother was directly involved in the negotiations of the deal, then you will say that, oh, President Mahama, as vice president and for that matter, chairman of the Ghana Armed Forces Council, should not have been involved in the negotiations himself. But here is the case that his brother was not involved in the negotiation of the deal. The deal was sealed even before his brother was engaged. That's number one. And the UK authorities, after investigating his brother, has now found that his brother committed no crime. And this is a letter written to Samuel Adam Foster, John Mahama's brother, by the SFO of UK, which the special prosecutor actually referenced in this report. And the report reads, I write to notify you that following a review of the evidence in your case and consideration of the code for crown prosecutors, a decision has been made that you are not to be prosecuted for any offense in respect of the above serious fraud investigations. Simplicity. Open and shut. So this is a man found to be innocent, not only by the Office of Special Prosecutor in Ghana, but even the UK Serious Fraud Office. No wrongdoing was involved. No wrongdoing whatsoever. No bribery,
but
no corruption, no illegalities.
In paragraph 610, then again, the direct participation of the president and the vice president in commercial communications and meetings with commercial entities should not be encouraged either. But on the specific matter of JM and his involvement in this, it says, such close proximity dealings by such elected high officials of the Republic and their kin and close associates on behalf of the Republic should neither be viewed favorably nor encouraged. At least when that is raised by the OSP, the former president at least must admit that at least he should have exercised better judgment on this matter.
Okay, have you seen the part of the report that says that? And it appears to the OSP that the direct communications and meetings between former President Mahama and officials of Airbus to close the deal were actuated by good intentions on the part of the former president. Have you read that part?
Also says on that matter, however good intention it was, he makes the point categorically that because of the proximity and the closeness of the relationship, it still lends itself to perceptions of conflict of interest.
You're confusing two different things.
I want to read that.
Hold on. The special prosecutor is saying that John Mahama was vice president, and he does not think that the vice president should be directly involved in the negotiation of such commercial transactions.
Yeah, what you read was a good intention.
But he agrees that even though John Mahama was directly involved, it was with good intentions to get a good deal for John Mahama.
Well, but he makes
so that is the opinion of Kisia Jaben.
On the same point, on the same point of good intentions.
Yes.
He says yes, it was with good intentions. However, even with the good intentions,
there is no however there.
Even with the good intentions,
that however is your insertion.
Even with the good intentions,
yes,
when there is a potential for conflict or reasonable suspicion, it mustn't be encouraged. You should
it is not there.
Away.
This is not how he said it. It's not true.
I want to read to you
read
all
that.
the way from 6.9.
Yeah.
Such close proximity. I read that already. Because he starts by saying, however, it ought reasonably to have occurred to him, former President Mahama, and the government at the time, that proximity, I want to read it and quote, that a familiar relationship between the former President Mahama and Foster and the direct participation by former Mahama in the communications and meetings with the Airbus officials were bound to raise reasonable suspicions of improper conduct and dealings, notwithstanding any claims to good faith conduct and above board dealings.
Yes. So you are worried about suspicions?
No, of course.
The special prosecutor is talking about the potential for legitimate suspicions.
You read the bit about
read it. Yeah, suspicions.
The special prosecutor says, even if it was good intentioned,
Yeah.
Notwithstanding that,
Yeah.
what he did places him in the position where he raises suspicion of improper conduct.
It could
And
raise
said
suspicions
especially in light of the fact that during the first Airbus campaign, former President Mahama was the chairman of the Armed Forces Council by reason of his position as a vice president and therefore a key decision maker.
My brother, the issue, everything you have read is the personal view of the special prosecutor on what he thinks can give rise to suspicions of wrongdoing, when in reality, there may not be any actual case of wrongdoing. So he has established that there was no wrongdoing, no corruption, correct? No bribery, correct?
That's a fact.
No breach of due process,
That's
correct?
what he found. That's
but
what he
he's
told
saying
us in
that
court.
because of the involvement of President Mahama's brother, it should have occurred to President Mahama that people could legitimately have suspicions.
Even
though his intentions were right.
Which is what you quote.
Yes, but so what is wrong with that?
So
what is wrong with that?
You come out to admit that yes, good intentions, but
I'm saying that what is wrong with that? Because the special prosecutor doesn't say that there was actual conflict of interest. No, he doesn't say that there was any illegality or corruption or bribery or crime. No. He is only saying that there could be suspicions. There could be suspicions. And we are not here to talk about suspicions. A multitude of suspicions doesn't constitute a fact. A multitude of suspicions will not constitute a crime. Every lawyer knows that. So the most important thing for your audience to know this evening is that everything Akufo-Addo, Bawumia and the NPP said against Mahama on the Airbus saga has collapsed totally. They were all lies. They have all been found to be untrue, both by the Office of Special Prosecutor in Ghana and by the UK Serious Fraud Office. John Mahama did nothing wrong. Everything he did was with good intentions. It doesn't matter that it could give rise to suspicions that there could be conflict of interest, because in actual fact, those suspicions did not exist. There was no such conflict of interest. The deal was concluded even before his brother was introduced, into the deal.
Stay with me, Sam. I want to bring in Adam Senanu and the anti-corruption campaigners. I've been watching this very closely. Travel 4 years is with the citizen movement against corruption. Mr. Senanu, thanks for your time here on Newsnight. Quick reaction to the findings of the special prosecutor tonight on this long-standing matter.
I think it's a very important milestone in our good governance development. I mean, this is an issue that was, as it were, triggered by the sitting president on the former president, and you have an existing organization that looks into the matter and, as it were, says that there is no evidence of culpability of corruption or corruption-related issues at a time where it is the one who triggered this particular matter who is still in power. It's a very significant milestone. I think we should keep that in mind because it sets a precedent. And hopefully people will pay attention that this should be possible, where a former president is willing to embrace the kind of investigation that has been done. I believe that the OSP has been very thorough and it's been a good outcome. I disagree with my brother Sami. Look, the appearance of potential conflict of interest is why this matter has traveled the distance of 4 years with cost to the state. And so if we can ensure that for the future, and so Evans, I align with you, if we can ensure that for the future, our presidents and vice presidents are mindful of situations of potential conflict of interest and keep themselves out or distance themselves, recuse themselves, take the necessary actions. It does not matter that at the end of the day, we found that there was no actual conflict of interest, which I'm happy about because it was embarrassing when you have a president being called government official one and all the, the slander, etc. So we are delighted that this particular report says that there is nothing substantive. However, we need to learn lessons from what has transpired as we move into the future. So, Sami, please, let's make sure that all our presidential candidates and vice presidential candidates are mindful of such advice and act on it. Otherwise, we'll be behaving like other people who, when advice is given, they will not take it. And then there's complication as you go forward. Let this country move forward.
The NPP's reaction is, considering that the OSP itself raises the potential of conflict of interest, he should have referred that part to the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice. Do you agree?
No, I don't. I think that the OSP clearly demonstrated that there was no direct engagement in terms of the transaction between the sitting president at the time and this person who was engaged on commission as an agent. It was Airbus's own internal mechanisms. And so you need to pay attention to the chain of events and not confuse it. If anything at all, Airbus needed to get its act together, and they were the ones who should have been taken on as far as this was concerned. I align with Sammy when he says that, look, this was a non-starter. So one needed to understand the chain of events. The negotiation had been completed. To all extents and purposes, the price was set, and therefore it was just a matter of the delivery and the payments. The likelihood that there was going to be anything substantive happening where the influence of the president at the time was going to change something because of his brother, that's not on the papers. So I don't think that is the way to go about it.
OSP had a recommendation. I want to read it to you. He says there must be a clear deliberate policy to stop presidents and vice presidents from participating in such commercial transactions, because that, he says, exposes them to all these allegations. And to be more specific, as they expose these elected high officials to the scepter of slightest hint of perceived corruption that may attend international business transactions. Do you agree?
I agree in total with that. Obviously, at some point, you're going to have your president and vice president, because of the role they play, doing some high-level negotiations. But when it gets to the nitty-gritty, it's important that we shield them. Whichever actions we can take, as it were, to isolate them from this kind of transactional engagements, which could then be interpreted as it was in this case, as maybe conflict of interest, improper use of discretion or facilitation. All of those things would not be issues that will be put down or somebody will raise such that then we have to start an investigation. It's a very important recommendation, and I hope that we will pay attention to it.
Sammy?
Evans, look, the likelihood of an act to raise suspicion is not evidence of wrongdoing. It doesn't even constitute suspicion in and of itself. So the fact that the special prosecutor indicated in his report that people could legitimately have cause to suspect that there was some wrongdoing does not mean that he is saying that there was a likelihood of conflict of interest, which is actually a term of art and which can trigger certain constitutional processes under the laws of this country. There could not have been a likelihood of conflict of interest because the deal was negotiated, sealed, and dusted even before John Mahama's brother came into the scene. That is something we all agree to. So this attempt to reopen a matter which has been closed both by the UK SFO and by the Office of Special Prosecutor in Ghana will not wash. As for the personal recommendation, opinion, or advice by the special prosecutor that a president or a vice president should not directly engage themselves in such negotiations is a very thorny issue that will require time to discuss. No, because under certain circumstances, the president who is the appointer or the vice president who may have overall oversight over a particular sector must be involved for the state to get a good deal. Sometimes these businesses, when they are dealing with ministers or deputy ministers, may not be amenable to agreements that are in the best interest of the republic. And that is why if you have a vice president who is a chairman of the Ghana Armed Forces Council and who wants Ghana to procure 3 aircrafts, high quality, but at an affordable price, he may want to participate in the negotiations and ensure that all the T's, the I's are dots, are crossed, and the T's, everything done properly. You understand? So that of itself is not wrong. And so, in conclusion, without belaboring the point, the special prosecutor has found, and bear in mind that Martin Amidu, the first special prosecutor, actually came out to say that there was incessant pressure on him from President Akufo-Addo for him to indict John Mahama at all costs relative to this Airbus matter. And so it's been clear from day one that the NPP had an evil agenda to smear Mahama with lies. That has been exposed. John Mahama's innocence vindicated. And today he stands quickly clean as an incorruptible leader 7.5 years after leaving office. And this is clearly the leader we can trust to win the fight against corruption for us. Thank you.
And that's Sami Jimfu, the National Communications Officer, on the subject of the OSP's investigations and the report that has been issued today on the back of that probe into the Airbus scandal. The NPP's position is that it was a shoddy job. The NDC celebrates the outcome, except that they disagree with the elements that relate to the issues around the exposure that we saw the former president engaged in when his brother was involved. The special prosecutor had raised the issues about he should have known that would have raised reasonable suspicion. I want to hear your thoughts on this particular matter. 05511